Close your eyes and imagine yourself stepping into an ancient world where the whispers of forgotten cults still move through the night air. Beneath soft candlelight and drifting incense, sacred women once carried divine roles. Priestesses, oracles, mothers of mysteries. Their voices rose like rivers, guiding seekers into the unseen realms. Tonight, we will not rush. We will wander slowly through sands and temples, through myths and gentle punishments that taught lessons of the soul. With every story, your spirit will soften, and your body will grow heavier, ready to surrender into rest. If these stories help your heart find stillness, let me know in the comments where you are listening from. And if you'd like more journeys like this, you're welcome to subscribe, gently, with no hurry at all. The night is quiet. You are resting. The body grows heavy while the mind becomes light. Imagine yourself standing before a land of ruins, half hidden beneath the veil of moonlight. Stones lie scattered like sleeping giants. Shadows stretch like soft ink across the earth. What was once a temple still breathes in the silence. Even though its walls are broken, the air remembers. The air remembers incense, chants, and footsteps of the sacred. You step gently, as if not to wake the stones. Every sound is muted, every breath tender. The stars above seem close enough to touch, and they shine as though they remember too. This is where women once kept the flame alive. They were priestesses, guardians of the sacred fire, vessels of memory. Their lives were woven with duty, discipline, and devotion. And in their world, punishment was never seen as cruelty. It was a way to guide the soul back to balance, like a river returning to the sea. In the heart of these forgotten temples burned a fire that never slept. It was said to be born from the gods themselves, a flame that carried heaven into the world of men. The women who tended it rose before dawn, their steps as soft as feathers, their hands steady and patient. They carried bowls of oil, jars of grain, and vessels of water. Each offering fed the fire like breath. The fire was not just light. It was seen as memory, spirit, and the rhythm of the universe. If the flame ever died, the people feared that harmony itself would fade. And so the women carried the burden, gentle but unending. They knew that their own lives were woven into the life of this fire. To neglect it was to drift away from the divine. Yet even when mistakes came, punishment was not wrath. It was correction, a reminder. It was seen as a turning back, a hand guiding the spirit toward balance. The women understood this. Punishment, in their eyes, was a form of care. You walk further into the ruins. The stones grow taller around you, and for a moment you see the temple as it once was. Walls rise high, painted with the colors of dawn. Columns stand strong, carved with vines and flowers, and between them move the women in long robes, their hair braided with small ribbons of gold. They walk in silence, their eyes steady, their faces calm. Every step is a prayer. They are not separate from the temple. They are part of it. Like living statues, they embody devotion. To live as a priestess was to surrender personal desire. Every meal was measured. Every word was chosen with care. They did not speak of themselves, but only of the flame. Their joy came from service, their peace from the balance they maintained. If one forgot her vow, if her mind wandered, she was not cast into despair. She was asked to fast, to walk alone in the sacred grove, to spend nights listening to the wind. Such punishments were not wounds, but medicines. They slowed the body and cleared the spirit. In silence, she would find her path again. Now the temple fades back into shadow. The ruins stand again before you. But in the silence, you can still feel the veil between past and present. It is as thin as the mist at dawn. Behind that veil lies the world of devotion, a rhythm forgotten but not erased. The women believed that tending the fire was tending the cosmos. Every spark was a star. Every flicker was a soul. The fire's warmth was the warmth of heaven itself. When they touched the flame, they touched eternity. To fail the flame was to drift from eternity's embrace, and so punishment came gently to remind them of who they were. It was like a mother's hand guiding a child back onto the path. Not cruelty, not anger, but correction wrapped in love. You breathe slowly, and you can feel that same correction in your own body. A slow inhale, a gentle exhale. The rhythm of the breath is its own sacred fire. If the breath falters, the body drifts. If the breath flows steady, peace returns. The priestesses knew this truth without naming it. They lived it. The punishments of these women were simple, but they carried deep meaning. One might be told to spend days in silence, letting no word pass her lips. At first, the silence would feel heavy, like a cloak pressing upon the shoulders. But slowly the silence would open, like a door to a hidden room. In that room, the priestess would hear the quiet voice of the divine, waiting. Another might be asked to keep vigil at night, standing by the fire until dawn. The hours would pass slowly, the body weary, the mind restless. But as the stars shifted and the first light touched the horizon, something inside her would soften. The weariness would dissolve into wonder. She would see that her body was small, but her spirit vast. The punishment became awakening. Others would walk into the forest alone, guided only by the wind. They would fast and pray beneath the trees. The forest would test them with hunger, cold, and fear. But the forest would also teach them that every tree is a pillar, every leaf a scripture. When they returned, they carried new strength, new gentleness. The punishment became renewal. Everything in these temples was balance. The flame burned steady because devotion and discipline balanced one another. Punishment and reward were not opposites. They were two hands holding the same truth. When a priestess honored her vows, she felt joy. When she strayed, she felt correction. Both joy and correction kept her within the circle of the divine. Neither was to be feared. Both were gifts. This way of seeing the world brought peace even in hardship. It told them that nothing was wasted. Every error was a lesson. Every pain a step toward balance. The temple stood, not through perfection, but through devotion that never ended. The ruins grow darker as the night deepens, yet the fire of memory glows. You can almost see it still burning in the center of the temple, a flame that does not fade, though the world around it crumbles. It is said that such fires never truly die. Even if the temple falls, even if centuries pass, the fire hides itself in memory, waiting to be remembered. Tonight you remember it, and as you remember, the flame lives again. The priestesses are gone, their names lost to time, but their devotion lingers in the air, in the stones, in the earth itself. Every whisper of wind through the ruins carries their breath. Every shadow is their robe, flowing in silence. You stand among them now. You feel their patience, their devotion, their gentle acceptance. It settles around you like a blanket, soft and warm. You are not punished, not judged. You are only guided slowly, kindly, back into balance. The stars shine brighter now. The night has grown deep, but it is not heavy. It is light, soft, and kind. The ruins fade into dream. The fire glows steady and eternal, and you drift closer to rest. The punishments of the priestesses were never truly punishments. They were reminders, songs of correction sung in silence. They were ways of shaping the soul, gently, like water shapes stone. And so too your breath shapes you now. Inhale, exhale, a soft rhythm. And it carries you deeper into stillness. It returns you again and again to peace. The veil of forgotten temples grows thin. You feel yourself passing through it, like mist dissolving into air. The temple fades, the fire rests within your chest, and the stars above begin to sing their quiet song. Now there is no burden, no duty, only peace. The priestesses have done their work, and you may drift into sleep. Let the stars guide you. Let the fire warm you. Let the silence hold you. Rest now, as the veil closes gently around you. Rest, as the forgotten temples breathe their eternal prayer. Rest, as the flame burns on, steady and soft, forever within. The night has deepened. A silver glow rests upon the earth. The stars linger like pearls scattered across velvet, and the moon rises higher, a patient guardian in the sky. Her light is soft, steady, and calm. It washes over mountains, over rivers, over sleeping villages, and it touches you, too, where you lie in stillness. In that light, a path opens, faint, misted, and dreamlike. You follow it with no effort. It carries you gently, as though the earth itself has laid down a road of silver. Along the path stand tall trees, their branches swaying like arms lifted in prayer. The air is cool, carrying the scent of night flowers, carrying the hush of distant waters, and then, in the clearing, the temple of the moon reveals itself. It is not made of stone alone. It is woven of silence, of shadows, of light spilling across polished floors. Its walls seem to breathe, as if alive with memory. This is where the priestesses of the moon once gathered, where their voices rose like tides, and their hearts belonged not to themselves, but to the rhythm of the night sky. The priestesses lived in cycles, like the moon they served. When the crescent was thin, they fasted, letting their bodies grow light. When the moon grew full, they sang through the night, their voices carrying across valleys, rising and falling like the waves. The moon was not just a light to them, it was a mirror. It reflected the soul, showing what was hidden, what was changing, what was eternal. Their songs were gentle yet powerful. They believed every note could reach the heavens, every tone a thread connecting earth and sky. When their voices joined together, the temple seemed to shimmer. The stones glowed faintly, as if holding the moon's breath within them. Travelers who heard the songs from afar said it was like listening to water fall into water, endless, soothing, eternal. But the songs were not only beauty. They were duty. To miss a note, to let the rhythm falter, was to disturb the harmony between heaven and earth. And so the priestesses trained with patience, learning not just with their lips, but with their hearts. If a song faltered, punishment came. Not cruel, not harsh, but corrective, guiding. The priestess might spend a night alone by the water's edge, listening until she could hear the hidden music of the waves once more. In silence, her song would return. Every woman who served the moon faced trials. They were not trials of war or battle. They were trials of stillness, of patience, of surrender. One trial was to stand in the temple courtyard on a night of full moon, her eyes fixed upon the light above. She could not move, could not lower her gaze. For hours she would stand until her body ached, until her breath slowed, until her thoughts dissolved into quiet. The pain was not punishment, it was purification. When dawn arrived, she would feel emptied, like a vessel cleansed by water. Another trial was silence. For a cycle of days, a priestess might be asked to keep her voice hidden, speaking no word, singing no song. She would rise, she would serve, but not a sound would pass her lips. At first, the silence felt like a burden, heavy and strange, but slowly it became a gift. She would hear the whispers of leaves, the laughter of water, the steady hum of the earth itself. In silence, she discovered that the whole world was singing, and sometimes a priestess would be asked to walk alone into the forest at night with no torch, no companion, only the light of the moon above. The trees were tall, their shadows deep, but she walked without fear. If she returned before dawn, she carried with her the wisdom of the night. If she did not return, it was said the moon had claimed her spirit, folding her into eternal light. Discipline and devotion walked hand in hand in these temples. The priestesses knew that love for the moon meant more than admiration. It meant giving themselves fully, even when weary, even when the heart longed for rest. And yet, rest was hidden inside devotion itself. They believed that the moon was both mother and teacher. She gave light in the darkness, but she also withdrew, vanishing into shadow each month. Her rhythm taught that even absence carries meaning. Even silence is a kind of song. Even discipline is a form of love. The punishments of the moon priestesses were small, but they echoed with wisdom. A missed note in a song led to solitude by the water. A broken vow of silence led to fasting until the body remembered patience. These were not chains, but reminders. They guided the women gently back to balance, like a tide that retreats only to return stronger. On nights of full moon, the temple came alive. Torches lined the paths, their flames bowing in the wind. The priestesses moved in flowing robes of white and silver, their steps measured, their hands lifted in prayer. They gathered in circles, faces turned toward the sky, and their voices rose together. The songs were layered, soft and strong, weaving through the night like streams that meet and merge. Each voice was different, but none stood apart. Together they became a single river of sound, pouring upward to the moon. The people of the valley would come quietly to listen. They did not enter the temple, but they sat beneath the trees, their eyes lifted, their hearts stilled. For in those nights the world seemed whole. The moon above, the fire on the earth, the voices between, all were one. And if a priestess faltered, if her voice cracked, the others did not scorn her. They sang around her, cradling her note with their own. Later she might be given solitude, a time to listen again. But in the circle she was never cast away. The moon taught them unity, and so unity was their way. Near the temple lay a lake, calm as glass beneath the moon. It was said the goddess herself bathed in those waters, leaving behind silver traces. The priestesses often came to the lake for reflection, not only of the moon above, but of their own souls. When they looked into the water, they saw not just their faces. They saw shadows of their fears, sparks of their hopes, echoes of their vows. The water showed everything, and if the reflection wavered, they knew it was their heart, not the water, that trembled. Punishment here was gentle. A priestess who faltered might be told to sit by the water through the night, her reflection her only companion. By dawn she would see herself clearly once more, the moon above, the water below, and her own spirit in between, all balanced, all whole. The moon rises, the moon falls, her face waxes and wanes, yet she is always there, always watching. The priestesses believed that their lives too followed this rhythm. Moments of fullness, moments of emptiness, both sacred, both necessary. In this belief, punishment was never the end. It was only the waning of the moon, the dark phase before light returned. Every silence led to song, every trial led to wisdom. Every shadow gave birth to silver light, and so their stories were passed down. Not in books, not in stone carvings, but in the rhythm of songs that carried across the ages. Even now, if you listen closely, you might hear them, a faint echo in the wind, a soft chant in the leaves, the lull of water beneath the moon. Their voices have not vanished. They drift still, like silver threads woven into the night. Now the temple grows quiet. The songs fade like mist, the torches burn low, and the lake lies still beneath the stars. The moon watches, her face calm, her light eternal. You stand at the edge of the clearing, your body heavy, your breath slow. You feel the devotion of the priestesses, their patience, their trials, their gentle strength. It settles upon you like moonlight itself, soft, cool, and endless. There is no need to sing now, no need to keep vigil, only to rest. The moon holds the sky. The priestesses hold the flame of memory, and you are safe beneath their watch. Let the silver glow soothe you. Let the night carry you. Let your breath rise and fall like the tides of the moon. The temple fades. The lake sleeps. The moon drifts across the heavens, slow and steady. And you drift too, into rest, into dream, into the eternal rhythm of night. Now rest as the stars return. Now rest as the moon blesses your sleep. Now rest, for the priestesses of the moonlight sing softly, forever, in the silence of the sky. The night has grown still. The stars hang patiently, their light cool and unchanging. The moon drifts above, calm as a lantern upon dark waters. In this silence, the air itself seems to wait. It carries with it the hush of voices not yet spoken, the soft weight of words that will guide the soul. You step gently into this quiet dream. The ground beneath is smooth stone, polished by countless feet before you. Torches flicker along the path, their flames bowing to the breath of the night wind. The scent of smoke and pine drifts together, ancient, steady, and comforting. Ahead, carved into the side of the mountain, rests the temple of Apollo at Delphi, a place where women once carried the voice of the divine, a place where whispers shaped kingdoms, and silence carried the weight of fate. The oracle did not speak like others. Her words came from the deep, from the place where breath and spirit meet. Before she spoke, she would descend into the heart of the temple. There, a chasm opened, a cleft in the earth, as though the mountain itself breathed. From that opening rose vapors, faint and sweet, carrying with them a quiet power. The oracle would sit upon a tripod, high above the earth's breath, her eyes closed, her body swaying as if cradled by unseen hands. The temple was hushed, the priests waiting, the seekers kneeling. And then slowly, the oracle would begin to murmur. Her voice was soft at first, like leaves brushing one another in wind. But the words that passed her lips were not her own. They were the voice of the god, rising through her breath, shaping themselves into prophecy. Some came seeking answers to battles. Some sought blessings for harvests. Others came with questions of love, or of life, or of death. The oracle's words, though sometimes veiled in mystery, carried the weight of heaven. To hear them was to stand at the edge of eternity. To ignore them was to step away from the path of balance. The priestesses who served as oracles were not chosen lightly. They lived with care, their days bound to purity, to silence, to prayer. They understood that the gift of voice was not theirs alone. It belonged to something greater, something eternal. When they spoke, people listened, not with ears alone, but with hearts open, with breath held still. For even the softest whisper could shape the course of lives. A warning might turn a king from war. A blessing might soothe the sorrow of a mother. A single phrase could ripple outward like a pebble cast into water, spreading far beyond the temple walls. But when words were ignored, balance would falter. Those who turned away from the oracle's guidance often found hardship, not as cruelty but as correction. The gods, it was said, did not punish out of anger. They guided with signs, with storms, with delays, until the path was found again. The oracle's whispers were not threats. They were reminders, soft hands leading those who had wandered back into alignment with the greater song. Punishment in those times was rarely a strike or a blow. It came in the form of silence, or waiting, or loss that opened the heart. If a traveler ignored the oracle's counsel, their journey might stretch longer, their body grow weary, their plans fall away. Yet in that delay, wisdom bloomed. The punishment became its own teacher, patient and kind. Kings who scorned the oracle's warnings sometimes found their armies lost in fog, their ships carried by wayward tides. But even then, the correction was clear. The fog would lift, the tides would calm, and the path would open once more, but changed, humbled, softened. The oracle's whispers were not chains. They were lanterns. If one turned from the lantern, the night became darker, the path harder. Yet always the light remained, waiting to be seen again. Imagine the oracle seated in stillness. Her body relaxed, her breath slow. Each inhale was like a tide rising from the earth. Each exhale was a river flowing outward, carrying the will of the divine. Her words were not spoken with effort. They rose naturally, like mist from water, like wind through branches. The seekers would bow, listening closely. They did not hear with impatience. They let each word rest in them like seeds upon soil. Over time, those seeds would grow, some into trees of wisdom, others into flowers of caution, others into vines that gently pulled one back from danger. And when the oracle finished, silence returned. The silence was just as holy as the words. It allowed the heart to settle, the spirit to understand. For in silence, the meaning of the whispers became clear. There were stories told around the oracle, stories that drifted like smoke through generations. Some said her voice was not her own, but that of a goddess hidden within her chest. Others said the mountain itself spoke through her, the earth breathing out wisdom. Some believed the oracle's soul left her body, rising like a bird, carrying messages between heaven and earth. Whatever the truth, all agreed that her voice was sacred. To mock it was to mock the divine. To ignore it was to step into shadow. But to honor it was to walk in light. And so the people listened, year after year, century after century. The oracle became a thread, woven into the fabric of their lives, binding them to the rhythm of gods and earth, of stars and silence. The gentle punishments that followed disobedience were not meant to harm. They were like rivers carving stone, slow, patient, shaping without breaking. The gods, through the oracle, sought not revenge but harmony. They corrected not with anger but with balance. If a farmer ignored the oracle's warning about planting too early, frost might take his crop. But from the frost, he would learn patience, and the next season his harvest would be full. If a traveler dismissed her words and set out against the signs, storms might slow him. But in the storms he would learn humility, and when the skies cleared, his journey would carry deeper meaning. This was the way of the oracle. Every punishment was a lesson. Every loss was a doorway to wisdom. Every silence was an invitation to listen more deeply. Now imagine the temple beneath the stars. The marble shines faintly in the moonlight, its pillars tall, its steps worn smooth. The mountain air is cool, carrying the scent of laurel leaves. Inside, the torches glow softly, their flames bowing to the night's breath. The oracle sits in stillness. Her eyes are half closed, her body relaxed. Around her, the air hums with a quiet energy, as though the earth itself is singing through her. A traveler kneels before her, waiting, heart open. The temple is silent except for the faint sound of wind moving through stone. Then, gently, her lips part. Words flow like water, like mist, like dream. The traveler listens. He does not rush, he does not press. He lets the words sink into him, soft and steady. And when the oracle falls silent again, he bows and leaves with the light of her voice still burning within. The oracle of Delphi is gone now. The temple stands in ruins, the marble worn, the voice is silent, and yet her whispers remain, not in words carved in stone, but in the memory of the earth, in the rhythm of silence, in the way the wind curls around the mountains. Even now, when the night is still, when the stars are bright, when the moon rests high, one can almost hear her. A soft murmur in the distance, a gentle breath rising from the ground, a whisper that carries no threat, only guidance, only care. The oracle's voice has not vanished. It lingers like the echo of a dream upon waking, like the faint glow of embers long after the fire has burned. It reminds us that the divine still speaks, not in thunder, but in quiet, not in commands, but in whispers. Now the temple fades, the torches dim, the pillars dissolve into shadow, the mountain air melts into dream. You are left with the whisper itself, soft, soothing, eternal. It carries you like a lullaby, guiding you deeper into rest. There is no punishment waiting, no fear, no burden, only correction, only balance, only the gentle rhythm of life. The oracle's voice becomes your breath, steady and calm. Each inhale a blessing, each exhale a release. The stars remain above, patient and bright. The moon glides onward, her silver path unbroken, and you drift too, carried on the quiet river of night. Now rest as the whisper softens. Now rest as the silence deepens. Now rest as the oracle's voice fades into dream, guiding you onward to peace. The desert night is vast. A slow wind drifts across the sand, carrying the coolness of stars. Above the heavens open wide, their constellations ancient and steady. Each star seems like an eye, patient, watching, eternal. Far below, on the banks of the Nile, torches glow in quiet rhythm. They flicker against tall columns carved with lotus blossoms and wings of falcons. The air carries the soft scent of incense, of resin and honey, of crushed petals offered to the gods. It is night in the temple of Isis, a place where women held the sacred charge of love, of healing, of life itself. You enter this dream as though stepping gently into a sanctuary. The walls rise tall, painted with stories of birth and renewal. Soft chants linger in the air, their tones slow and low, like waves upon water. Here, in this timeless temple, the sacred daughters of Egypt walk. They move with grace, robes flowing, eyes lifted toward the moonlit sky. In the days of the Nile's grandeur, women served as priestesses of Isis and Hathor. Isis, the mother of all, the healer, the one who wove life back into the lifeless. Hathor, the golden one, goddess of joy, of dance, of the sweet milk that nourishes the young. Their temples were places of softness, of beauty, of rhythm, and the women who served within them were known as sacred daughters. They tended to the altars. They poured libations of water and wine. They lit lamps that burned all night, steady flames to remind the people that love never sleeps and life never fades. Their voices lifted in song, soft hymns that flowed like the Nile itself. To hear them was to be soothed, to feel the heart rest in gentle harmony. The daughters were more than servants of ritual. They were keepers of balance. Each gesture, each chant, each offering of bread or milk was a thread in the great weaving of life. Without these threads, the cloth of the world might fray, but when tended with devotion, it grew strong, shimmering, eternal. The Nile was their lifeline. Its waters rose each year, flooding the fields, leaving behind rich soil. To the Egyptians, this was not just nature. It was the breath of Isis. It was the tears she shed in mourning for Osiris, her beloved. And from those tears, new life blossomed. The priestesses honored this truth. Each dawn they poured water upon the temple floor, symbol of renewal. As the cool stream touched stone, they whispered prayers for the people, for harvest, for children, for peace of heart. The water was more than water. It was memory, it was promise, it was the cycle of all things returning. Those who forgot to honor the waters, who failed to give thanks, found their lives touched with dryness. Crops withered, lips thirsted, dreams grew brittle. This was not punishment and cruelty. It was the world reminding them to return to flow, to bend like reeds, to give like rivers, to remember the softness of water. At night, the sacred daughters lifted their eyes to the sky. The stars were not only lights, they were souls. They were the spirits of the departed, shining forever in the great canopy of Nut, the sky goddess. Isis herself was said to dwell among them, her crown a star, her love a river of silver across the heavens. Hathor too was linked with the stars. Her temples often aligned with them, so that light would fall in sacred measure at the right hour of the year. For the priestesses, the stars were reminders. Every ritual, every song, every offering was part of that same celestial rhythm. To neglect them was to drift from harmony. And so when people forgot their devotions, the reminder came not in fire or pain, but in distance. The stars seemed colder, dreams seemed dimmer, and sleep felt empty. A quiet correction, nudging the heart back to reverence, back to wonder. In Egypt, punishment was rarely loud in the temples of Isis and Hathor. It came like a whisper. A forgotten ritual might bring a restless night. A neglected offering might cause a lamp to flicker out too soon. The reminder was gentle, like a hand on the shoulder, like a mother's glance. If a farmer ignored the sacred days, the Nile might rise too late or too soon, humbling his pride. If a traveler dismissed the prayers of Hathor, his journey might be delayed, his camel pausing, his road stretching longer. Not cruelty, only correction. Not wrath, only rhythm. The sacred daughters understood. They knew that neglect was not evil, only forgetfulness. And forgetfulness could always be healed. A single act of devotion, a bowl of water poured, a song sung beneath the stars. These were enough to restore balance. The gods, after all, were never far. They lingered in the breath of the night, in the glimmer of stars, in the flowing of rivers. The daughters sang each evening. Their voices rose in soft unison, weaving together like strands of silk. The hymns praised Isis for her healing hands, praised Hathor for her laughter, her beauty, her endless giving. The notes echoed through stone halls, floated beyond columns, and touched the open night. Travelers on the road would pause, listening. The songs drifted like cool water across the desert air. They carried peace. They carried love. They carried the promise that no soul was alone, not under the stars, not beside the river, not even in silence. For those who forgot devotion, the songs were a reminder. Each tone was a callback to the heart, a callback to the center. No harshness, no demand. Only invitation. Come back to the river. Come back to the stars. Come back to the embrace of life. Imagine the temple of Hathor under the glow of the moon. The columns are tall, their tops shaped like open papyrus blossoms. The stone glimmers softly, touched by silver light. Incense drifts upward in thin spirals, joining the night sky. Women move slowly through the halls. They carry lamps, their flames small and golden. Each step is measured, each movement soft, as though time itself has slowed within these walls. They hum as they walk, their voices blending with the sound of water poured into basins. Moonlight rests on their faces, serene, timeless, eternal. Here, the world feels whole. No sound is too loud. No shadow is frightening. Only balance. Only love. Only the breath of the gods woven into the silence. The people of Egypt knew that if they drifted from their rituals, the reminders would come. Not to strike them down, but to lift them up again. A dream might come, showing water slipping away, or stars growing dim. A lamp might refuse to light, its flame bending back into smoke. These were not curses, but gentle signs. They whispered, "Return! Return to what is sacred. Return to love." Even the greatest kings heeded such reminders. Pharaohs would pause their wars to honor Isis. They would build chapels to Hathor, where music and laughter filled the air. For they knew that without balance, even power could wither. But with devotion, life flowed endlessly, like the Nile's eternal waters. Though the temples now stand in ruins, their stones touched by sand and sun, the spirit of the sacred daughters has not faded. Their songs linger in the wind, their prayers rest in the stars, their footsteps are carved into the earth, guiding those who wander even now. When the Nile rises, it is still the tears of Isis. When joy fills the heart, it is still the gift of Hathor. And when life reminds us gently, when dreams correct us softly, it is still the voice of the sacred daughters calling us back to balance. Now the temple fades into night. The torches dim, the columns dissolve, and only the sound of soft water remains. It flows endlessly, soothing, calm. The stars above hold steady, patient, bright. You drift with them now. Your breath rises and falls like the Nile, slow and full. Each inhale a gift, each exhale a release. The whispers of the sacred daughters linger, not as words, but as comfort. They remind you that you are held, always, by balance, by love, by the endless flow of life. Now rest as the river softens. Now rest as the stars return. Now rest as the sacred daughters sing within your dream. The night is vast and tender. A hush falls over the desert plain where the sands rest beneath a moonlit sky. Far in the distance, the walls of Babylon shimmer like a dream, their gates carved with lions, their towers touched by the stars. The air is still, holding the faint fragrance of cedar, of sweet resins carried from distant lands. Above, the heavens turn in their quiet rhythm, their constellations circling like dancers in eternal motion. You drift closer into the heart of the ancient city. The streets are hushed. Only the sound of soft sandals on stone echoes faintly. At the center, a temple rises. Its steps are wide, its pillars strong, its walls painted with deep blue, the color of night itself. Upon its crown stands the goddess Ishtar, carved in shining form, her wings spread wide, her gaze lifted to the stars. This is her house, the place where the circle of Babylon gathered, where women moved in quiet devotion. Here they sang, they prayed, they kept alive the rhythm of heaven and earth. Here, balance was guarded, beauty was preserved, and discipline was seen as love. The temple stands as a mountain of stone and faith. Its chambers glow with torchlight, their flames flickering against mosaics of lions and doves. Incense curls upward in silver threads, reaching for the sky. Every corner hums with the soft echo of chants, voices weaving together like threads of silk. Women move through the halls, their robes of linen flowing, their hair crowned with simple bands. Their steps are measured, their gestures slow, as if each movement is part of a greater dance. These are the daughters of Ishtar, devoted to the goddess of love, of war, of the heavens themselves. In their hands they carry bowls of grain, of honey, of wine. They set them before the goddess's image, offerings of sweetness, strength, and sustenance. Their prayers are not hurried. They flow like water, gentle and patient, filling the silence with devotion. To the people of Babylon, the heavens were more than stars. They were teachers. The moon, the sun, the wandering planets, all moved in circles, in patterns that told the story of time. Seasons, harvests, storms, and peace all followed these rhythms. The circle of Babylon mirrored this truth. The women who served Ishtar lived their days like the heavens above. Rising, resting, chanting, pouring water, lighting flame, all was done in cycles. Their discipline was not harshness, it was harmony. To live outside this rhythm was to step away from the dance of the cosmos. And so when they faltered, correction came softly, gently turning them back into balance. Punishment in the temple was never cruel. It was quiet, like the turning of the moon. A forgotten prayer might bring a night of silence, where the priestess would sit beneath the stars until she remembered her place in the song. A misstep in ritual might be met with fasting, a pause to cleanse, a pause to reflect. Such moments were not shame, but reminders. The heavens themselves never punished, they only turned. A planet out of sight would return again. The moon, though dark, would glow once more. And so the daughters of Ishtar learned to see mistakes not as endings, but as circles, paths that always curved back to beauty. Within the sacred chamber, where walls were lined with golden stars, the voice of Ishtar was believed to rest. When the women sang, their hymns rose as one. The goddess was not seen, but felt like warmth in the heart, like the hush before dawn. She was strength, but she was also softness. She was the field that gave grain, and the storm that tested the soil. She was the lover's embrace, and the warrior's fire. The daughters knew her not as distant, but as near. When they poured water upon the altar, they believed it touched her hands. When they burned incense, the smoke became her breath. Every devotion was connection. Every offering was a thread in the bond between earth and sky. Each evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, the women gathered in a circle. They stood beneath the open roof where stars began to appear. Drums pulsed softly, steady as a heartbeat. Voices rose in chant, flowing like the river that wound through Babylon's gates. They turned slowly, arms lifted, feet moving in unison. The circle was not only their shape, it was their truth. It reminded them that life has no edge, no final point. All things return. All things are held within the endless embrace of the goddess. To break from the circle was to feel lost. To return was to find home again. And so the discipline of the women was simple, to keep the circle unbroken. Not by force, but by love. Not by demand, but by devotion. Beside the temple, a garden bloomed. Even in the desert air, water was drawn from hidden channels, feeding palms and vines, lilies and roses. The garden was sacred to Ishtar, for she was the giver of love and beauty. Here, women walked in silence, tending the flowers, feeding the birds that gathered in branches. If a priestess forgot her balance, she might be asked to spend her hours in the garden, to prune, to water, to breathe among the blossoms. For in the garden, beauty returned. The roses reminded her of gentleness. The palms reminded her of strength. The doves reminded her of peace. Every punishment was a return to what healed. At night, the women lay upon the temple roof, gazing upward. The constellations of their ancestors glimmered above. The lion, the bull, the scorpion. Each star carried a story, each path a lesson. One told of a king who ignored the goddess and found his power crumble. Another of a woman who forgot her vows, only to be reminded through dreams until she returned. None of these tales spoke of cruelty. They spoke of love that was stern but steady, like the orbit of the moon, like the path of the sun. The daughters listened, and in their hearts they understood. Every life was part of this great circle. Every soul, though it might wander, would always return. Ishtar was both tender and strong. To her daughters, she taught the balance of love and discipline. One without the other could not endure. Love without order could scatter like sand. Discipline without love could harden like stone. But when woven together, they became like clay and water, ready to shape into beauty. The women of Babylon lived this balance daily. They rose with devotion. They rested with peace. When they faltered, they were guided back, as gently as a river bends back into its course. Now, the city grows quiet. The torches burn low. The temple walls glow faintly under the light of the moon. The daughters of Ishtar complete their circle, their voices fading into silence. Above, the stars continue their turning. They remind all who gaze upon them that nothing is lost, nothing is forgotten. Every mistake bends back toward healing. Every shadow is followed by light. Every silence is filled again with song. And as you drift beneath this ancient sky, you too are part of the circle. Your breath rises, your breath falls. Your thoughts move and return like waves against the shore. There is no ending, only soft returning. There is no punishment, only reminders of balance, of beauty, of love. Now the temple fades into dream. The drums fall silent. The torches turn to embers. Only the stars remain, steady and patient. You drift with them now. You float in their circle, endless and calm. Every breath carries you deeper into rest. Every heartbeat joins the rhythm of the heavens. Let the circle hold you. Let the goddess soothe you. Let the night become your sanctuary. Now rest as the stars return. Now rest as the circle continues. Now rest as the daughters of Babylon sing you into sleep. The night spreads softly across ancient stone. The city of Rome rests beneath a silver sky. Shadows stretch along marble walls, and the air carries the faint fragrance of olive groves and smoke from hearth fires. Far above the streets, where quiet now replaces the clamor of the day, a single flame glows. It burns steady, sheltered within the heart of a temple. This flame does not sleep. It is the eternal fire, and it is guarded by the silent sisters. You drift closer, through colonnades where footsteps once echoed, into the round chamber of the Vestal Temple. The walls rise in harmony, curving like an embrace, open to the sky above. At the center, upon a stone altar, the flame trembles with soft light. It flickers against polished marble, against carved statues of goddesses, against the faces of young women who stand in silence, keeping watch. These are the Vestal Virgins, chosen as children, honored by Rome. They serve not with swords or crowns, but with stillness. Their vows are deep, their discipline strong, and their lives shaped by the flame they guard. The Romans believed this fire was no ordinary fire. It was the soul of the city, the heartbeat of its people. As long as the flame burned, Rome would endure. If it faltered, the city would weaken. The silent sisters tended the flame with devotion. Each morning one would bring fresh wood. Each evening another would sweep the ashes, keeping the altar pure. They prayed in whispers, hands steady, eyes lowered, knowing the weight of what they carried. The fire was more than warmth. It was memory. It was protection. It was Rome's spirit, flickering yet unbroken. To serve the flame, the Vestal Virgins gave vows as strong as stone. For 30 years they belonged not to themselves but to the goddess Vesta. They promised silence, purity, and devotion. Their lives became circles of ritual, each moment carefully placed, each gesture sacred. They were given honor, more than most women of their time. They could ride in carriages, their paths cleared by guards. They were invited to games, their seats set beside senators and kings. Their word carried power in courts, their presence brought blessing to ceremonies, but this honor carried weight. If they faltered, if they broke their vows, their punishment was heavy. The city saw their devotion as balance, and a broken vow was seen as a tear in the fabric of Rome itself. In the temple, silence was not emptiness. It was presence. The women moved softly, robes whispering against stone, sandals gliding across marble floors. The only sounds were the crackle of fire, the drip of water in basins, the soft rustle of leaves brought in for offerings. Silence wrapped them like a cloak. It calmed the mind, quieted the breath. Through silence, they touched the sacred. Through stillness, they became steady, like the flame itself. To them, silence was not punishment. It was sanctuary. It was the way their spirits aligned with the goddess, with the fire, with Rome. Yet, in stories whispered through the ages, the shadows of punishment remain. If the flame was left untended, a Vestal might be struck or corrected. If her vow of purity was broken, the city turned grave. For such vows bound Rome itself, and their breaking was seen as breaking the bond of protection. The punishment was harsh, yet even here, the story bends towards something softer. The earth itself was said to cradle them, for they could not be killed by human hands. They were led into silence, into chambers deep below, given bread and water, left with prayers. It was as though Rome believed the goddess herself would choose their fate. Though heavy, these tales remind not only of discipline, but of devotion's weight. To the Romans, vows were sacred circles. When broken, the circle bent, yet always the memory of devotion remained. To the silent sisters, every ritual was a reminder of life's balance. The fire they tended never slept, yet they knew that beyond the city walls, rivers flowed in cycles. The Tiber rose and fell with the rains, its waters circling back again. The fire was eternal, the river was ever-changing, yet both were needed. They saw themselves in both. Like the fire, they were constant, steady, unyielding. Like the river, they were human, full of tides and currents. Their discipline kept them close to the flame, but their hearts still knew longing, still knew the pull of life beyond the temple. In this balance, they found their strength. The fire held them steady. The river reminded them they were alive. Beside the temple, a hidden garden bloomed. Tall cypress trees stood like sentinels, their shadows long and cool. Fountains whispered softly, sending ripples across stone basins. Flowers grew in ordered rows, roses, lilies, and violets, their fragrance carried on the breeze. Here the silent sisters found rest. When the weight of devotion grew heavy, they walked among the blossoms, hands brushing soft petals, eyes lifted to the sky. Birds nested in the trees, their songs mingling with the hush of water. The garden was a reminder that devotion could also be gentle. Not all discipline was fire. Some was fragrance, some was beauty, some was peace. The goddess Vesta was not fierce like Mars, nor proud like Jupiter. She was hearth, she was home. Her flame was the warmth of kitchens, the glow of lamps, the safety of families gathered together. To serve her was to serve life itself. The silent sisters were not warriors, but they carried the same weight. For without the hearth, Rome could not endure. Without the flame, there was no center. The people trusted them. They were seen as guardians not just of the temple, but of the heart of Rome. Their silence was not absence, but presence. Their devotion was not loss, but offering. The vows of the Vestal Virgins lasted 3 decades. The first 10 years they learned how to tend the flame, how to keep silence, how to serve the rituals. The next 10, they carried the full weight of duty, tending, praying, guiding. The final 10, they taught the younger ones, passing on their knowledge like embers carried from one torch to another. At the end of 30 years, they were free. They could step beyond the temple, live as they wished, even marry if they desired. Yet many chose to remain, for the temple had become their life, the flame their companion, the silence their home. Now the temple grows quiet in your mind, the flame flickers softly. The sisters move like shadows, robes flowing, steps slow. The night deepens, and the stars lean close, watching as guardians of the guardians. You drift with them, standing before the eternal fire. You feel its warmth, steady and gentle. It does not burn, it soothes. It does not demand, it comforts. It is the fire of Rome, the fire of Vesta, the fire of devotion itself. You breathe in its light. You breathe out its peace, and slowly, your spirit rests beside it, calm and still. The silent sisters fade into dream. Their temple softens into mist. Only the flame remains, steady in the darkness. It glows for Rome. It glows for the goddess. It glows for every heart that longs for peace. It glows for you now as you rest. The stars turn above, eternal as the fire. The silence deepens, soft as a lullaby. Let the flame warm you. Let the silence cradle you. Let the night carry you into gentle sleep. Now rest as the stars return. Now rest as the flame burns eternal. Now rest in the care of the silent sisters. The desert opens like a dream, a vast ocean of sand, golden by day, silver by night. The horizon stretches wide where the earth seems to kiss the sky. Winds whisper across dunes, carrying secrets older than kingdoms. Here in the stillness of endless sands, women once walked into silence. They were the desert mothers, seekers of hidden light, keepers of peace in solitude. The cities behind them were filled with voices, with markets, with noise. But out here, there was only the sound of the wind, the flight of birds, and the quiet beat of their own hearts. The desert was their teacher, their trial, and their companion. It gave no easy comforts, yet it revealed the soul like no other place. The sun rose each morning in a blaze of gold. Its rays painted the dunes in long shadows, in waves of light and shade. The sand grew hot beneath bare feet, yet the women walked with patience. They carried small jars of water, simple bread, and the psalms of their hearts. At night, the world shifted. The heat gave way to cool winds. The stars appeared, countless and near, like lanterns lit by unseen hands. The sky became a temple, its dome filled with shimmering prayers. The desert spoke not in words, but in silence. It offered both challenge and comfort. It was harsh, yet it was also healing, for in its vast emptiness the soul found room to breathe. These women were called amas, meaning mothers. They were not mothers of children, but mothers of wisdom. They left behind families, homes, and the safety of walls. They sought a deeper life, a life of prayer, fasting, and listening. Some lived alone in caves. Some gathered in small huts, forming quiet communities. Their lives were plain, but their spirits glowed with strength. They taught not with long speeches, but with gentle words given only when asked. Their wisdom was simple like cool water in a clay cup. They spoke of patience, of kindness, of love that does not falter. To them, every grain of sand was a reminder of the countless mercies of the divine. Unlike the courts of men, the punishments here came not from rulers or judges. They came from the desert itself. If a woman grew careless, forgetting her prayer, the sun burned hot upon her shoulders. If she wandered too far, the sand stretched endlessly, offering no path home. If she doubted her strength, the silence pressed upon her heavy and deep. Yet these were not cruelties. They were lessons. The desert corrected gently like a stern but loving guide. Every hardship carried a hidden gift. Thirst taught gratitude. Loneliness taught compassion. Silence taught the language of the heart. Through these trials, the women grew strong, yet soft, firm in faith, yet tender in spirit. The desert shaped them like wind shapes stone. Slowly, patiently, beautifully. One story tells of Amasera, who lived near the flowing Nile but chose the solitude of desert caves. She prayed for years in silence, her heart steady as stone. Visitors came to test her, some with harsh words, some with questions, but she remained calm, answering only with kindness. She said, "I put myself in the place of all. I find rest." Her rest was not from comfort, but from surrender. She learned to live with whatever the day brought, the heat, the hunger, the silence. Her cave became a place of hidden light, glowing not with torches, but with the peace she carried within. Another tale speaks of Amma Syncletica. She taught with images drawn from simple life. She said, "When you light a lamp, you first endure smoke and flame, but then comes steady light." So it was with the soul. At first, the journey of prayer was hard, filled with struggle, but if one endured, peace would shine like a steady flame. Her words were like soft songs carried on desert winds. They reached hearts near and far, guiding those who sought wisdom. Through her, the desert became not only a place of silence, but a place of radiance. The desert mothers knew endurance. They bore the burning heat of day, the cold winds of night, the endless walking, the unbroken silence. But through endurance, they discovered peace. Peace was not escape. Peace was not ease. Peace was the stillness that grew inside, a wellspring that no sun could dry, no wind could scatter. The desert stripped away all distractions. It left only the soul and the divine face to face. And in that meeting, peace bloomed like a hidden flower, unseen yet eternal. The sand became scripture, each grain a reminder of humility. The stars became guides, leading travelers through the night, leading souls toward light. The wind became a voice, speaking softly of change, of surrender, of patience. The desert itself became a temple without walls, endless and free. The women saw the desert not as empty, but as full of mystery, full of presence, full of hidden treasures for those who could endure. Now the sands open before you. You walk softly upon the dunes. The air is cool, filled with the scent of desert herbs carried on the breeze. The stars shimmer above, countless, eternal. Ahead, a small fire glows, where a desert mother sits in stillness. Her eyes are calm, her face lined with years of prayer. She does not speak, but her silence comforts you. Her presence is like water in a dry land. She lifts her gaze toward the stars, and you feel yourself lifted too. In her silence, you hear more than words. You hear peace. You hear endurance. You hear hidden light. The desert softens into dream. The sands stretch wide, but they no longer feel harsh. They are gentle now, like a vast blanket beneath the night sky. The desert mothers remain, their prayers like quiet streams flowing through the ages. Their caves still hold echoes of silence. Their wisdom still glows like hidden lamps. Rest now as the desert cradles you. Rest as the stars keep watch. Rest as hidden light flickers softly within. Let us drift onward. Let us rest as the sands grow still. Let us sleep in the peace of the desert night. The night unfolds slowly, like the turning of an ancient scroll. The air is cool, brushed with the softness of distant winds. Above, the stars shine clear, as if listening. The world feels hushed, as though waiting for a voice to rise. And from that silence, the memory of a song begins. It is not a song of human invention, but a song woven into the bones of time. It is the song of the Sibyls, women who once sang prophecies beneath vaulted caves, by holy waters and upon temple steps. Their voices did not belong to themselves alone. They carried the weight of gods, the breath of destiny, the hush of eternity. The Sibyls were women chosen not for power nor for pride, but for their openness to mystery. They were vessels. They were harps upon which the divine played its melodies. Some dwelled in caverns, where dripping waters echoed their chants. Some sat near sacred springs, their voices rising with the steam. Some stood in temples, their words falling like dew upon kings and wanderers alike. Their gift was both beautiful and heavy. Every word carried meaning beyond itself. Every chant was more than music. It was guidance, warning, promise, or path. To hear the Sibyl was to hear the breath of fate. The Sibyl's song was not loud, not harsh. It did not come like thunder. It came like wind moving through reeds, like water trickling through stone. The song soothed the weary, but it also stirred the conscience. It revealed what was hidden, and it invited hearts back toward balance. Kings bent low to listen. Travelers paused in their journeys, waiting for a line of chant. Even the poor and forgotten found comfort in her voice. For it was said, the Sibyl sang not only to rulers, but to all who sought truth. Her song was a bridge between heaven and earth, between silence and speech, between what is and what could be. Yet every gift carries its shadow. To ignore the Sibyl's song was to drift from harmony. To twist her words for greed or war was to dishonor the music of the divine. In stories told by firelight, such misuse was never met with anger, but with redirection. A kingdom that scorned the Sibyl's warning might find its wealth crumble like sand. A ruler who mocked her chant might discover his armies lost and missed. Not as punishment in cruelty, but as a reminder that to leave the song is to leave the path of harmony. And always, the way back was simple: to listen once more, to open the heart, to let the sacred song return. One Sibyl is remembered in whispers, the Sibyl of Cumae. She dwelled in a cave, vast and echoing, where shadows danced against the stone. Her prophecies were written on leaves, fragile as breath. The wind itself carried them, scattering meaning like seeds. Visitors entered her cavern with torches, their flames trembling. The Sibyl's chant rose from the depths, low and rhythmic, like waves against a shore. Her words told of journeys across seas, of wars and peace, of empires rising and falling. Those who listened left changed, even if they did not understand every sound. For the chant carried not only meaning but music, and the music alone could awaken the soul. The Sibyl's song was often compared to water. It flowed without end. It refreshed the thirsty spirit. It carved valleys of meaning through the stones of human hearts. Like a spring hidden in the desert, her chant gave life where there was dryness. It carried clarity, purity, and renewal. Even when her words foretold hardship, the song itself was soothing, reminding listeners that all things, even pain, flow toward harmony. The water of her voice was a gift that no one could own, only receive. The Sibyls taught that the universe itself was a song. The stars moved in rhythm. The tides rose and fell in measure. The seasons turned like verses of a hymn. To live in harmony was to join that great choir, to let one's own life become a note in the eternal music. And when people strayed, the Sibyls' chant was like a gentle hand, guiding them back into the melody. Her words did not force but invited. They did not punish but redirected. They reminded all that even the broken string can be tuned again. Even the wandering voice can rejoin the choir. Now imagine yourself near one of those ancient caves. The moonlight lies silver upon the rocks. A soft wind moves through the trees, carrying the faint scent of earth and stone. You step closer, and within the darkness a sound begins. It is not loud. It is not sharp. It is a chant, rising slow like mist at dawn. It carries no fear, only calm. It flows around you, through you, above you. The Sibyl does not appear, yet her voice is everywhere. It tells you nothing harsh, only that you are held, that you are part of the great song, that your life has rhythm even when you cannot hear it. You feel the music inside your chest, in the steady beat of your heart. Each breath becomes a note, soft and steady, joining the eternal harmony. The chant fades, but its echo remains. The stars above seem to sing in silence. The earth beneath seems to hum gently, steady and strong. You rest in the circle of that music, safe and still. The Sibyl's song continues, though you may not hear it with your ears. It flows through the wind, through the water, through the pulse of life itself. It is always near, always waiting, always guiding. Now rest as the Sibyls keep their watch. Rest as the sacred song moves softly through the night. Rest as harmony holds you, gentle and endless. Let us drift onward. Now rest as the stars return. The night stretches long and quiet. Mist rolls over the hills as though the earth itself exhales. The moon hangs low, silver and round, resting in a cradle of drifting clouds. You find yourself moving gently into the green lands of the Celts. Here, in the hush of old forests and endless meadows, a sacred fire glows. Its light is steady, its warmth eternal. It has burned through seasons, through winters and springs, never allowed to fade. Women tend this fire in silence, their faces calm, their movements slow. They stir the embers, feed the flames, and guard the glow as though guarding the breath of life itself. In Celtic lands, the fire was more than warmth. It was a thread to the divine. It was the sun brought down to earth, a light that never slept, a flame that whispered of eternity. The women who kept the fire were keepers of balance. Their role was quiet yet immense. For as long as the flame lived, the people believed harmony would remain. The crops would grow, the rivers would flow, the seasons would turn as they were meant to turn. The fire was the heart of the grove, and the grove was the heart of the people. The sacred groves were not loud with worship. There were no grand pillars, no towers of stone. Instead, tall oaks reached to the sky, their branches like arms lifting prayers. Soft moss carpeted the ground, damp with dew. Birdsong carried lightly on the air, as though even the smallest creature took part in the chant of life. Here the women walked softly, robes brushing the grass. They tended the fires with careful hands, laying wood in patterns that echoed the cycles of the moon. They whispered blessings as sparks leapt upward, believing each spark a messenger rising toward the heavens. The grove was a place of stillness, a place where time slowed, where breath deepened, where the world felt whole. The Celts did not always speak of punishment in harsh terms. Instead, their lessons were woven into nature itself. When someone strayed from the path of harmony, they were reminded by the turning of seasons. Winter carried its weight of cold and hunger, yet also its promise of renewal. To be sent into the winter woods alone was not cruelty, but a teaching. The cold taught endurance. The silence taught reflection. The return of spring taught that even the harshest frost melts, and life blooms again. So too, those who neglected the sacred fire might be set apart for a time, asked to sit in stillness through the dark of the year, not cast away in anger, but guided gently back into rhythm. For the Celts believed that all things could return to balance, just as the earth itself always found its way back to spring. The fire itself was a teacher. Its flames flickered with many lessons. A fire fed with care grew steady and warm. A fire neglected grew weak, and smoke clouded the air. And if the flame died, the silence was heavy, a reminder of the fragility of all things. Those who watched the fire learned patience, for flame grows slowly. They learned humility, for fire can vanish with a single careless breath. And they learned devotion, for tending the eternal flame meant tending the spirit of the people. The punishment for neglect was not scorn, but the sorrow of seeing the flame dim. The restoration was not cruel, but the joy of seeing it rise again, bright and alive. The Celts lived by cycles, each season carrying its sacred trial. Spring was a season of planting, when hands pressed seeds into soil and prayers into earth. Summer was a season of labor, when sweat fed the land and light stretched long into the night. Autumn was a season of harvest, when gratitude filled the air like incense. Winter was a season of silence, of trial, of waiting for the return of the sun. The fire mirrored these rhythms. It blazed high in summer, when festivals crowned the hills with torches and song. It glowed low in winter, guarded carefully, a promise that even the darkest night held light. In each season the flame whispered, "All things pass, all things return. Endurance brings renewal, patience brings peace." Those who guarded the flame lived quiet lives. They were not queens, yet they held a power deeper than crowns. They did not command armies, yet their devotion was the shield of their people. Their trials were gentle, yet not easy. They rose in the cold of dawn to stir the embers. They walked into forests to gather wood in silence, listening to the voices of trees. They prayed in soft chants, words carried on smoke, and if they faltered, the trial came not with anger, but with lessons of endurance. To sit alone with the cold flame was a trial of the soul. To wait, to reflect, to feel the quiet weight of responsibility. This was the way back to devotion. In their patience, they discovered peace. In their silence, they found strength. At times, the quiet of the flame gave way to celebration. The Celtic people lit great bonfires on hilltops, flames roaring upward to meet the stars. Cattle were led between fires, believed to be purified by the smoke. Families carried embers home, relighting their hearths with sacred flame. The women who tended the eternal fire watched with calm joy, knowing their work nourished the joy of the people. The trials, the cold, the silence of winter, all were worth the light of these moments. The festivals sang of balance, between light and dark, between trial and renewal, between earth and sky. Now, drift into the grove yourself. The air smells of pine and smoke. The grass is cool beneath your feet. The fire glows before you, steady, calm, eternal. You sit near its warmth. Sparks rise upward like stars, vanishing into the night sky. The women chant softly, voices blending with the crackle of flame. Their song is not loud. It is gentle, like leaves moving in a breeze. It carries no command, only comfort. You feel your own heart as a small flame, steady and warm. It flickers with each breath. It brightens with each moment of stillness. You understand now that this inner flame is your own eternal fire. It can dim, but it can always be rekindled. The night deepens. The grove grows quiet. The fire glows low but steady. Winter may come, yet spring always waits. Cold may linger, yet warmth always returns. The Celtic fires teach of endurance, of patience, of renewal. They remind us that trials are never the end, but the turning of seasons. They remind us that harmony waits beyond hardship, that light is always hidden within the dark. Now rest as the fire glows in your memory. Rest as the groves stand watch in silence. Rest as the stars above carry the sparks of your dreams. Let us drift onward. Now rest as the stars return. The night stretches wide and silent. The stars drift like seeds across the dark soil of the sky. You move softly as though carried by unseen hands toward the ancient land of Greece. The hills are quiet under the moonlight, the fields silvered with dew. At the edge of a small town, lanterns flicker, leading you toward a sacred place. It is Eleusis. Here, for countless seasons, a great mystery unfolded. Here, women gathered as keepers of holy secrets. Here, the story of Demeter and Persephone was sung not with words, but with silence. Not with books, but with rituals of the heart. The air grows hushed as you near the sanctuary. Stone steps rise before you, worn smooth by the tread of countless pilgrims. Torches glow in the night, their flames bending with the wind. The silence here is not empty. It feels full. as though the air itself is listening. The women who guard this place are gentle yet firm. They are called the mothers of the mysteries. Their eyes carry the calm weight of earth. Their voices, when spoken, flow like a slow river. They welcome you, but not with many words. Instead, they invite you into quiet. For here silence is not absence. It is a vessel for sacred truth. At the heart of the mysteries is a tale. The tale of Demeter, goddess of harvest, and Persephone, her daughter, drawn into the shadowed underworld. It is a story of loss and return, of sorrow that ripens into renewal, of earth that sleeps in winter and awakens in spring. Those who entered Eleusis sought not only to hear the tale, but to feel it within their bones. The women led them step by step, through shadows into light, through silence into vision. The rituals were woven with symbols, grain placed into hands, a torch lifted high in darkness, a cup of drink that warmed the lips, simple acts that opened the heart. To guard these mysteries was a sacred trust. No one could speak of what they had seen. Words spoken carelessly could scatter the meaning, like seeds spilled on stone. If silence was broken, the gift of vision was lost. The punishment was not fire, not chains, but the closing of the inward eye. The women taught that to betray the mystery was to blind oneself to the truth within. Yet even this punishment was not final. For blindness could teach humility, and humility could open the heart once more. Those who faltered found themselves adrift, cut off from the circle of vision. The fire of the ritual no longer warmed them. The songs no longer spoke. The silence no longer shone, but the mothers did not cast them away. They guided them gently to stillness. They asked them to sit in the fields, to touch the soil, to watch the slow turning of the seasons. Through patience, the lesson returned. Through humility, the heart reopened. The flame of vision, once lost, could glow again. The punishment became a path, a redirection toward balance, a reminder that all souls can find their way home. The mothers of Eleusis were not queens or rulers. They did not command by sword or decree. They guided by presence, by gentleness, by the steady devotion of their lives. They were keepers of cycles. When they spoke of Demeter, they spoke of the grain that fed the people. When they spoke of Persephone, they spoke of the mystery of death and return. They reminded the people that all sorrow carries the seed of joy, that all loss carries the seed of return. Their power lay not in thunder, but in silence, not in law, but in symbol, not in punishment, but in the soft shaping of the soul. Imagine now the night of initiation. The air is cool. The sky is heavy with stars. Pilgrims gather, their faces lit by torchlight. The mothers move among them like shadows, whispering blessings, guiding feet. You are led into darkness. The air grows thick and silence wraps around you. Your breath slows. Your heart listens. Then a torch flares, breaking the dark. The flame is bright, but not harsh. It feels like sunrise after endless night. You see the faces around you, eyes shining, all sharing the same quiet awe. A cup is passed to you. It tastes of earth and grain, simple, grounding, alive. The women chant softly, their voices weaving with the crackle of fire, with the breath of the night. You do not need to understand. You only need to feel. The mystery is not thought, but presence. The story of Demeter and Persephone is not distant here. It breathes in every act. The grain pressed into your hand is Persephone's return. The fire in the torch is Demeter's hope. The silence is the earth wading through winter. The chant is the spring breaking forth again. The lesson is gentle yet deep. That loss and renewal are woven as one. That descent and return are bound together. That silence itself carries the seed of vision, and the mothers remind you, if you forget, you may falter. If you break silence, you may lose the gift. But always you can begin again, for life itself is a mystery that never ends. Now the ritual fades. The torches burn low. The fields of Eleusis stretch outward, silver with moonlight, quiet with sleep. The mothers walk slowly back to their homes, their robes brushing against the earth, their voices hushed, their faces calm. You are left with silence, but it is a full silence, a silence that glows, a silence that comforts. The mystery does not end. It lingers in your breath, in your heartbeat, in the turning of seasons. And so, rest now. Let the silence cradle you. Let the vision soften within you. Let the seeds of renewal settle in your soul. The night deepens. The stars return. The earth waits, patient, and the mystery continues always, Let us drift onward. Now rest as the stars return. The night stretches like a silver veil. Stars shimmer above, patient and soft. You drift across the ancient lands, toward hills where stone temples rise, their pillars quiet in the moonlight. This is Asia Minor, a place where the earth trembles with old stories, where mountains hold the memory of prayer and rivers whisper of healing. Here the mother goddess was known as Sibyls. Here her temples were sanctuaries of rest, where weary souls came seeking comfort, where gentle hands welcomed them home. Imagine the temple now. Its steps are wide and cool, polished by centuries of bare feet. Lanterns glow with a soft flame, casting shadows that sway like leaves in the breeze. Inside, the air is warm with incense. The scent is sweet, heavy, calming, a perfume of myrrh and crushed herbs. The walls are painted with deep colors, scenes of lions beside the mother, hands lifted in blessing, fields blooming under her gaze. Priestesses move quietly through the hall. Their robes are long and flowing, their movements slow, deliberate, serene. They speak little, for silence is the first gift they offer. The silence feels alive. It does not weigh upon the chest. It lifts like a gentle tide, soothing the restless heart. Sibyls was called the Great Mother. To her people she was mountain and meadow, river and stone, life and death woven into one. She was fierce, yet also tender. She was vast, yet also near. Her temples were not places of fear. They were places of balance. Those who entered came not to be judged, but to be restored. The priestesses carried her presence in their touch, in their stillness, in the songs they hummed as offerings. The healing did not come in haste. It came slowly, like spring returning after winter, like dawn after the long night. When a soul wandered into disharmony, the punishment was not cruel. It was gentle. It was meant to guide the spirit back to balance. Some were given silence. They sat in quiet corners of the temple, speaking no word, listening instead to the breath of the world. In silence their anger softened. In silence their sorrow found rest. In silence they discovered peace. Others were given fasting. A bowl of grain was set aside. A cup of water was placed before them. They lived simply, with little more than the earth's pure gifts, and in this stillness of body their minds grew clear. Their hearts grew light. The mother's presence filled them. Punishment was never a wound. It was a medicine. It was a way of returning home. The priestesses touched with care. They placed hands on weary shoulders, on trembling brows, on tired hearts. The touch was not forceful. It was steady like the earth beneath bare feet. It was warm, like sun after rain. Through their hands the presence of Sibyls flowed. The Great Mother's embrace was felt in every gentle press, every calming stroke, every resting palm. Pilgrims who entered with burdened hearts left with breath that was light, eyes that could weep with relief, souls that felt held once more. Outside the temple, sometimes drums would echo through the hills. They were slow, steady beats, like the pulse of the earth. The drums were not to stir frenzy. They were to remind the people that all life has rhythm, that sorrow has rhythm, that joy has rhythm, that even silence has rhythm. As the drums pulsed, the heart grew calm. The body remembered its own gentle cadence. The spirit remembered it belonged to something vast, something eternal. People traveled far to reach her temple. Farmers with cracked hands, mothers who carried loss, elders whose strength had waned, all came to her, seeking a place to rest their spirits. They brought small offerings, a ribbon of cloth, a handful of grain, a carved figure of wood. Each gift was placed at her altar, each one a whisper of gratitude, each one a thread woven into her endless story. The mothers of the temple never turned anyone away. The pilgrim with wealth and the pilgrim with nothing sat side by side, equal in the presence of the goddess. In her temples, sleep was sacred. Those who lay upon the cool stone floors often dreamed vividly. The priestesses said that Sibyls spoke in dreams. She sent visions of rivers, of lions, of wide meadows in bloom. She showed paths back to health, paths back to balance. Dreams were not to be feared. They were to be cradled softly, gently, like birds in the hand. And when pilgrims woke, their dreams were shared in whispers, listened to with patience, honored as sacred messages. When punishment ended, it was not marked by judgment. It was marked by renewal. The one who had fasted was given a bowl of warm bread, its steam rising like prayer. They ate slowly, every bite a gift, every taste a reminder of the mother's abundance. The one who had kept silence was invited to sing. a soft hymn rising into the air. Their voice trembled, then grew steady, as the weight of silence blossomed into praise. The temple glowed with these small acts. Every fast, every silence, every touch was a thread in the great tapestry of healing. The moon lingers above the temple, its light silvering the stone walls. The drums fall silent, the torches burn low. The priestesses close the doors slowly, their robes trailing like river mist. Inside, pilgrims sleep in peace, their dreams cradled in the mother's hands. And the great mother, Sibyl of the mountains, Sibyl of the fields, watches with endless patience. Her healing flows like unseen water. Her hands stretch across the world. Her silence holds all who rest. The stars above shimmer softly. The land breathes in quiet harmony. You drift with that same rhythm, slow and gentle like the heartbeat of the earth itself. The healing hands remain steady and eternal. They touch your spirit with calm. They cradle your breath with love. They guide you deeper, into rest, into stillness, into sleep. Now let the silence carry you. Let the stars fold around you. Let the mother's embrace be your pillow. The night is endless. The peace is wide. The healing continues. Let us drift onward. Now rest as the stars return. The night is quiet, yet the sea never truly sleeps. Its breath is endless, rolling, sighing, whispering against stone and sand. You drift now, over waters dark and deep, where moonlight scatters like silver dust on rippling waves. Far in the distance, small islands rise from the sea, their shapes soft, their shores glowing under the stars. These are the Isles of the Maidens, keepers of water's memory, singers of the ocean's song. Imagine a narrow beach at twilight. The tide sighs in and out, a rhythm steady as a heartbeat. On smooth rocks near the shore, women sit in quiet circles. Their hair is long, shining with salt and moonlight. Their voices rise, low and gentle, blending with the waves. Their songs are prayers, not shouted but breathed. Every note is an offering, a bridge between mortal life and the spirit of the sea. They sing of rain and river, of tides that cradle the moon, of fish that glitter like stars beneath the water. They sing to honor the sea, to remind her they remember, to remind her they belong. The sea holds many faces. Sometimes it is calm and glassy, like a mirror for the sky. Sometimes it is restless, its waves tumbling and wild. The maidens taught that water spirits lived in every wave, in every current, in every hidden pool. Some spirits were tender, guiding boats safely to shore. Some were stern, rising in storms to test the courage of sailors. The maidens knew them all, as one knows the moods of a beloved. Through song, they soothed the restless spirits. Through song, they gave thanks for calm seas. Through song, they asked forgiveness for all who had forgotten the old ways. When songs were neglected, when prayers went unsung, the sea remembered. Its waves grew taller, its voice grew fierce. Clouds gathered thick, winds pressed hard. These storms were not cruelty. They were reminders. They were lessons written in lightning and rain. They reminded the people that the sea is not only a gift, but also a power. Every storm was a call to return, to lift voices once more, to honor the waters that held life itself. And when the people remembered, when they sang again, the storms calmed, the skies cleared, and the sea once more embraced them like a mother rocking her child. In the islands, song was also medicine. When someone carried sorrow, the maidens brought them to the shore. They sat close, the tide brushing their feet, the air filled with the smell of salt. The circle began to sing, slow, steady tones, woven together like threads. The sound rose and fell, mirroring the waves. The one who was burdened closed their eyes. The songs entered like water, cooling the fire of grief, washing the heart clean. When the circle ended, there was no applause, only silence, deep and tender, as the sea carried the sorrow away. On nights when the moon was round and bright, the maidens danced upon the sand. Their feet traced spirals, their arms lifted like flowing water. Torches burned low, their flames bending in the breeze. The sea seemed to listen. The waves softened, the air grew still. It was said that, on these nights, the water spirits themselves rose unseen, moving in rhythm with the dancers, joining in the silent celebration. The maidens sang not of asking, not of needing, but of gratitude. Their voices wove joy into the air, a joy that was soft, never loud, a joy that cradled all who listened. There came times when people left the old songs behind. They grew busy with harvests, with markets, with ships built for distant lands. The maidens sang still, but fewer joined their circles. The sea grew restless. Storms returned, boats capsized, fishermen feared the deep. Children wept at the sound of thunder, and yet, even in anger, the sea was merciful. For every storm that struck, a rainbow followed. For every ship lost, another found safe harbor. The punishment of storms was never the end. It was always a call to return, and when the people remembered, they came again to the shore. They knelt, they sang. The waves grew calm. The maidens smiled. The maidens taught that water remembers. Every drop that falls knows where it has been. It carries whispers of mountain streams, echoes of rivers, dreams of ancient seas. When rain touched the skin, they said it was a blessing, a memory of the clouds. When rivers swelled in spring, they said it was the earth singing. Its voice carried back to the ocean. To drink was holy.
To bathe was renewal.
To listen was prayer. Water, they said, was the spirit of life itself. When a maiden herself forgot her song, she was not scolded. She was given silence. She sat apart, listening to waves alone, until her heart remembered the rhythm of the tide. If her voice grew harsh or hurried, she was given fasting. No salted fish, no bread, only clear water to drink, until her spirit softened like water itself. In this way, punishment was never harsh. It was always a return. It was always a reminder to become like the sea, patient, flowing, endless, calm. Now the night deepens. The waves hush themselves as though even the ocean wants to sleep. The maidens sit in silence, their robes dark with dew. The moon drifts higher, casting a path of silver on the water. Somewhere in the distance, a gull cries once, then all is still. The sea breathes slow. The shore rests. The songs fade into memory, and you too drift, as though carried by the tide. The water cradles you, soft as a lullaby. The stars above shimmer, gentle as eyes that never close. The ocean holds you, vast and tender. Its rhythm is your rhythm. Its peace is your peace. Let us drift onward now, as the waves carry us deeper into stillness. Now rest as the stars return, and the sea sings you to sleep. The night opens slowly, like a hand releasing its last light. Shadows deepen. The desert breathes its cool air. And above, the sky bends wide with stars like silent lanterns. You drift through this quiet, floating across dunes that roll like sleeping waves. Their curves catch silver light, their edges softened by wind. Far ahead, a faint glow waits, the glow of fire, of ritual, of a place where silence meets eternity. This is the land of the Black Stone, a stone older than kings, older than cities, a stone carried in stories as a gift from the heavens. And here women stand as guardians. They are robed in sand's pale hues, their eyes steady, their hearts tuned to the desert's song. The black stone rests in a small chamber, its walls curved like an embrace. Torches burn low, casting soft gold on the dark surface. The stone is smooth, its edges worn by centuries of touch. To the people, it is more than rock. It is a memory of the stars. It is a piece of night that chose to remain upon earth. Women tend it with quiet hands. They wash it with water carried from distant springs. They anoint it with oils scented with myrrh and cedar. They wrap it in cloth when storms blow fierce outside. To them, the stone is not heavy. It is gentle. It listens. It absorbs every prayer, every whisper of gratitude, every sigh of sorrow. Each dawn, as the horizon blushes with light, the guardians gather. Their steps are slow, their voices soft. They form a circle around the stone, their robes brushing the floor, hands lift. Palms open, breath steadies. They chant not with loudness, but with stillness. Every word is stretched thin, carried like smoke into the air. Their song greets the sun. Their song greets the stars now fading. Their song greets the stone, which seems to shimmer in the meeting of night and day. Those who listen feel their hearts soften. Even the desert winds pause, as though drawn near to the circle's quiet grace. Yet in these ancient paths, to neglect the rites was to invite exile. Not exile of cruelty, but exile into silence. A woman who forgot her duty was sent into the desert, alone with sand and sky. She walked where no shade stood, where the sun weighed heavy, where night brought cold like glass against the skin. This was her punishment, and yet also her gift. For in the silence of dunes there was no distraction, no voice but her own, no guide but the stars. There, the forgotten became remembering. There, the punished became renewed. The desert, endless and empty, turned into a teacher. When she returned, if she returned, her voice was slower, her steps were softer, her heart was steady as stone. The guardian said the stone was a fragment of the heavens. Once long ago, a star had broken, its body falling, its light swallowed by earth. What remained was this stone, dark and still, but carrying within it the memory of fire. To touch it was to touch the sky itself. To lean against it was to feel eternity's breath. Children were brought to it to learn respect. Elders came to it to lay down their final prayers. Travelers bowed before it, leaving offerings of grain or cloth. The stone did not answer, yet it was never silent. Its silence was filled with presence, like the pause between waves, like the hush before dawn. In each generation, the guardians were chosen. They were not chosen for wealth nor for lineage, but for listening hearts. The women sat together in nights of teaching. They learned the songs of the wind, the meanings of stars, the signs carved by shifting sand. They practiced silence, holding it like water, never letting it spill. Their circle was unbroken. When one grew old, another stepped in. The stone never stood alone. It was always embraced, always guarded, always loved. The desert itself was a holy scripture. It spoke not with ink, but with emptiness. It taught patience through long days of stillness. It taught humility through vast horizons. It taught endurance through thirst, through heat, through the endless shifting of sand. The guardians knew that to live here was already devotion. Every breath was a prayer. Every step was surrender. And so even punishment, the exile into dunes, was not fear, but invitation. It was the desert saying, "Come deeper. Come learn what you have forgotten." Those who returned came back transformed. Their eyes carried distance, as though they had seen the edge of time. Their voices carried quiet, as though every word was a gift. They knelt again before the stone, not with shame, but with gratitude. The circle welcomed them. Hands touched hands. No word of scorn was given, only silence. The same silence they had carried back from the dunes. And in that silence, forgiveness was complete. Through centuries, the guardians watched. Empires rose, empires fell. Merchants passed, armies crossed, kings declared. Yet the women kept their circle, their song, their care for the stone. The desert changed little. The stars changed less. The stone remained, dark, silent, a mirror for devotion. And those who came always found the same. A chamber lit by quiet flame, a circle of women in stillness, a black stone that seemed to breathe with the memory of the sky. Now the fire in the chamber fades, shadows stretch long, the desert cools. The stars gather once more, like guardians above the guardians. The women rest beside the stone, their robes folded, their heads bowed. The torches flicker low, then steady. The night is vast, yet within these walls all feels tender, all feels near. You drift in this chamber, your breath matching the desert wind, your silence matching the stone's silence. The dunes outside sleep like waves. The stars above keep their watch. The stone waits. The women wait. The desert waits. And you too wait, drifting deeper into quiet. Let the silence of the desert become your silence. Let the patience of the stone become your patience. Let the calm of the stars become your calm. Now drift onward, carried like sand by the night wind. Now rest as the stars return and the desert sings you to sleep. The night has folded itself around the high peaks. A silver moon drifts slowly through the thin air, casting pale light across the slopes. The mountains breathe with quiet strength. Their snow shines like candle wax, soft and glowing under the sky. You drift upward, as if carried by the wind, rising above valleys, above rivers that gleam like strands of silver thread. Far below, the villages sleep. Far above, the stars gather close, as though leaning nearer to these ancient heights. Here, in the thin, still air of the Andes, sacred voices once echoed. Women tended altars where clouds brushed the stone. Their prayers rose on wind, their songs flowed into silence. This was the place where the earth touched the heavens, where stone met sky, where every vow was heard by the peaks themselves. At dawn, the air was cool and clear. The guardians of the altars climbed narrow paths, their feet steady on rock shaped by centuries of steps. Each carried small offerings, bowls of maize, bundles of herbs, cups of clear water. The altars were simple, flat stones, ringed by smaller rocks. Yet in the rising sun, they glowed with quiet majesty. The women laid their offerings down, their fingers brushing the cold stone, their voices low, soft as the hum of bees. Each word they spoke was carried upward on the wind. Each prayer was gathered by the air, lifted higher into the listening sky. The people believed the mountains themselves could hear. Each peak had a spirit, an ancient soul older than rivers, older than men. The women called them apus, the guardians of stone and snow. To speak upon the altars was to speak to the apus. The peaks did not answer with words, but with silence deep enough to hold every plea. Sometimes, when clouds drifted low and wrapped around the stones, it was said the mountains were leaning down, listening more closely. And sometimes, when the wind rose suddenly, curling through the shrines, it was said the peaks themselves were sending their breath in reply. The women at the altars made vows. Some promised to guard the land, to protect the crops in the valleys below. Some promised to live in purity, to carry water to the thirsty, to heal the sick with herbs and song. Their vows were threads woven into the fabric of the sky. But vows were not only promises of action, they were promises of presence. A vow meant a heart turned toward the peaks, a life lived in harmony with stone, sky, and silence. Breaking a vow was not met with anger from the mountains. Instead, it was met with a deeper summons, for the Andes did not punish with wrath. They punished with surrender. When vows were broken, a woman was sent to the mountains. Not forever, but for a season. She carried no offering, no food, no fire. She climbed into the thin air with only her breath and her silence. The mountains received her, not with cruelty, but with vastness. Cold nights pressed against her skin. The sun, bright and unyielding, burned her shoulders by day. The wind circled endlessly, whispering, testing, teaching. In that surrender, the heart broke open. There was no hiding from the peaks, no hiding from the silence. The mountains stripped away all noise, all pride, all distraction. Only stillness remained. And from that stillness, a new voice rose within. Those who were sent into the peaks learned that the sky itself was a teacher. Its wide, endless space reminded them of humility. Its shifting clouds taught them of change. Its stars, steady and eternal, taught them of patience. When they closed their eyes at night, they did not feel alone. The mountains surrounded them like ancient guardians. The stars above glimmered like gentle eyes. Every breath of wind carried words they could not understand, yet words they felt deep within. By the time they descended, their steps were slower, their voices softer, their eyes shining with clarity. The surrender had become strength. The punishment had become healing. When the season ended, the women returned to the altars. They carried nothing but their silence. The others welcomed them, not with judgment, but with song. Low and steady, the voices rose in a chant, a hum like flowing water. The returning women knelt before the stone. They pressed their foreheads to the altar's cold surface, and in that touch they felt the presence of the peaks, the memory of wind, the vastness of sky. They did not speak of their exile. There was no need. The silence had already told their story. Generations passed. Empires rose and fell in the valleys below. Conquerors came, languages changed, villages shifted. But above, the guardians remained. The women of the Andes still climbed. They still placed offerings of maize and water. They still sang their slow, low songs to the peaks and to the sky. The altars above the clouds still held their silence. The apus still listened, and the vows still bound hearts to stone and sky, threads stretching across centuries, woven into the breath of the mountains. Now, the moon drifts higher, casting its silver glow over the slopes. The peaks stand unmoved, their snow glimmering, their silence deep. You drift near an altar. Its stones are cool beneath the night wind. A small flame flickers, shielded by a bowl of clay. Voices rise softly, women chanting, their song flowing like water into the sky. Above, stars shimmer in patient watch. Below, valleys sleep in shadow. All is still, all is held, all is eternal. Let the calm of the peaks become the calm of your breath. Let the silence of the sky become the silence of your thoughts. Let the watchfulness of the stars become the watchfulness of your dreams. Now drift onward, as though carried by wind over mountains. Now rest as the sky returns to its quiet teaching and the night carries you deeper into sleep. Night gathers softly, settling like a cloak across the earth. The air is still, save for the gentle sigh of wind moving through unseen branches. Above, the stars open once more, 1,000 tiny embers scattered across the sky. You drift toward them, your breath slow, your heart quiet, as though each beat were a step into silence. The dream has carried you far, across deserts, rivers, and seas, through mountains and groves. Now the path curves gently back, bringing you to a flame that never dies. In many lands and across many ages, there was a fire that never went out. It glowed in stone temples. It burned in clay vessels. It flickered in open air, sheltered only by prayer. Women were its keepers. They walked softly, their steps careful upon the stone. They fed the fire with wood, with oil, with breath. Their task was simple yet eternal. To guard the flame was to guard the breath of the world. The fire was not of one people alone. It rose in Greece, where the daughters of Hestia tended to its light. It rose in Rome, where Vestal Virgins kept the hearth of the empire alive. It rose in the Celtic groves, where flames flickered among oaks and mist. It rose in Asia Minor, where Sibyls' fire was said to heal the weary. It rose in high mountains, where smoke curled into the endless sky. Everywhere, the fire was the same. It was the one thread woven through all places, all times. The fire was more than heat. It was memory. Each spark carried the whispers of ancestors. Each ember glowed with the stories of the earth. To sit before the flame was to sit within eternity. Those who drew close felt their burdens soften. The warmth was not only upon the skin, it was upon the heart. It entered the breath. It wrapped around the spirit like a blanket of quiet light. The flame was also a mirror. It showed those who watched the dance of their own lives. Birth was the first flicker. Youth was the bright blaze. Old age was the steady glow. And death was not an end, but a quiet ember returning to the ash, to be carried again in the breath of wind. Yet even the flame had its rules. If a keeper neglected the fire, if its light faltered, then silence fell heavy. The punishment was not harsh, but it was deep. A woman who let the flame go dark was not cast into cruelty. Instead, she was sent into solitude. She sat in darkness with no fire to warm her hands, no light to guide her eyes. She faced the night alone, listening to her breath, waiting. At first the darkness felt like loss, yet in time the darkness revealed itself as blessing. For in the silence she heard her own heart. In the absence of flame she remembered the gift of its glow. The punishment became a teacher, turning her once more toward reverence. When she returned to the fire, her hands trembled with gratitude. Her breath was steady, her song soft, and she never again forgot the sacred weight of light. Across centuries, flames were tended and forgotten, extinguished and rekindled. Empires rose and fell, forests grew and were cut away. Yet the idea of the flame remained. Somewhere, always, someone guarded light, and so it is even now. Every candle lit in memory, every hearth tended in silence, every lamp kept glowing in the night, is a thread tied to that eternal fire. Blessing and punishment are not two paths, but one circle. To stumble is to return. To forget is to remember more deeply. The flame teaches that all roads, no matter how far they wander, curve back into light. Now picture yourself before such a flame. It burns low and steady, its glow soft as moonlight on water. The air around it is warm but not heavy. The shadows it casts are gentle, moving like waves across the wall. You sit close. The crackle of the fire is like a quiet lullaby. Each spark leaps upward, then drifts into stillness. You watch, your breath following its rhythm, slow, rising, falling. The fire does not ask for words. It does not ask for effort. It only asks for presence. Here you are not judged. Here you are not measured. You are simply held in the glow of something older than time. As you gaze into the flame, you see the long journey behind you. The deserts, the seas, the mountains, the groves. Each place has left its light upon your spirit. Each story has been woven into your breath. Now, all paths fold together. They curve into one. They return you to the eternal flame, the center of all things, the heart of night, the womb of rest. The fire glows. The shadows soften. The silence deepens. Your body is heavy, yet your spirit is light. The flame is your breath now. It rises, it falls. It warms, it soothes. You drift inward where the flame glows within your chest, steady, eternal. You drift outward, where stars flicker like faraway embers scattered across the sky. The two lights, the one within, the one above, are the same, both eternal, both at rest. Now let the night take you. Let the flame guide you into stillness. Let the circle close gently around you, so that every breath, every thought, every dream returns to light. Rest now, as the guardians once rested. Rest now, as the flame keeps watch. Rest now, for all paths have led you home. Let us drift onward, into silence, into warmth, into sleep. The flame will remain. It always remains.